Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aging and Spirituality podcast. And I'm Kathy Lee Taylor.
And I'm Chris Jensen.
There she is, my lovely partner. And we're so excited to be with you again, to talk to you. We were just talking before we got online about how exciting this is for us every week. We love doing this. This is something that, between her and I, we've been having, we can't even count how many conversations we've had about yoga in our life over the last, 40, 45 years. So it's fun for us to be able to talk about this. We're getting feedback that people are enjoying it and they're actually learning and really benefiting from it. So here we go. Today, I'm going to be talking about an idea that actually I have worked a lot on and that people tend to really struggle with. And that is how to let go of unwanted thoughts and feelings. So that means you get irritated, something comes into your mind that you can't let go, and it just is like a little gremlin that's holding on, and you cannot shake it for, no matter what, or a feeling that is painful. And, those are pretty hard to let go sometimes. So there seems to be a process that I know I went through. I looked back on some of the things that I did that worked for me. And we're going to talk about those now. And I'm just letting Chris know. So what I did was I put down like 4 steps that I go through when I go through this process, because I still go through it. And I'm going to give an example of something that happened to me, I think, on the weekend. And so please jump in when you hear things that you can add something to, or a tip or an exercise, or wherever it is, because I will tend to just keep rolling. So
we'll do it.
So here's one of my unwanted thoughts and feelings over the weekend. I was got in my car and gone somewhere and hear this steering wheel is making this noise, and of course my response is always like, oh, come on. Like I don't need this, but it was enough of a noise to know that I couldn't drive the car any farther. And I went to the mechanic, and it was this big old part going to cost me a ton of money to get it fixed, and I left it there and had to get a ride home, and just like one of those things, right? So you get back home and you're irritated, but for me it just really threw me into a more of a survival mode, which has been something that I've had to deal with my whole life. And when I say that, I mean surviving versus thriving in life. Like if you're always living in that fear of not being able to pay a bill, that kind of poverty consciousness, which I certainly grew up with, it's very difficult to thrive and succeed from that spot. So I've learned to not encourage that kind of thinking, that kind of survival thinking. And so I want to let go of those particular irritable feelings. So step number 1 is, first of all, become aware of it. Awareness is always the first important detail, right, Chris? You got to know what the heck you're dealing with.
Yeah. And I think there's something important there too, becoming aware of it and being okay that you have this feeling. One of the things that most of us do, because we were all taught as children, especially
Right.
women, were taught, oh, you don't want to have any negative thoughts or feelings about things,
Right.
And just know that it's natural, it's human, and you have this thought, it's okay, and you're going to deal with it. Not that it's going to dominate you, but if you try to repress it and pretend that it's not there, it's just going to get bigger.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And she literally just took my second point, and that was to accept it.
Sorry.
No, please don't be. I want you in on the conversation, and we're just so in sync on all of this, So yes, you become aware of it. Most important, don't deny it, don't ignore it, don't try to sweep it under the rug, because it's just going to come back and bite you in the butt. And so accepting it is kind of wouldn't you say accepting it is more of a emotional process than it is a mental process? It's kind of like you just kind of have to take it in. Okay, this is where I am. Don't know why, can't explain it. How does that feel to you?
Yeah, it definitely is emotional. And, one of the things that in yoga we always say is if you're going to grow, if you're going to go forward, you have to accept yourself where you are. We tend to pretend to ourselves that we're more okay than we are, or that maybe we're further along in the spiritual path or our careers or whatever it is. So, that's a really key thing to just, okay, this is where I am. That's the step we call contentment. This is where I am. And now how do I go forward from here?
And that's a really important point what you just said, Chris, because when I talk to people and this trend of wanting to project, figure out where you're going, visualize what the answer is and be there, it's ahead of this process of accepting it. You have to accept it first before you start visualizing what the next ideal step is. That makes sense. You can't jump those processes.
Right.
So literally that takes me from, okay, I've become aware that I'm irritated and I'm way back in this poverty consciousness thing, which just annoys me even more. And now I'm going to go, okay, Kathy, we know this deal. We've been here before. We've done this a few thousand times. So now for me, the next step is to set an intention to respond in a different way. So I recognize the feelings that I'm having. I don't allow them to usurp my energy. I recognize that the emotion I'm having about being in that place is not serving me. So I'm just going to let it go. And I'm going to talk about visualizing, but I want Chris to really talk about what it feels like, what it means, what is the energetic process when you let something go. I think this is the key where people get stuck.
Yeah, it is, because we have such a habit of hanging on.
Yes.
And we don't realize that we're doing that. We kind of get stuck in our subconscious. And so the process of letting go is being willing to first acknowledge the feeling and then acknowledge that this isn't where you are now. Like I had an experience not recently where for whatever reason, it was just one of those days I got up and I had this feeling of fear. Maybe it's all the stuff in the news, whatever, but
yeah,
this fearfulness. And it made me feel like I felt when I was a teenager, that horrible feeling.
Yes.
And I had to look at that and look at, and said, okay, this is in my subconscious. So it's there. I can't pretend that just blow it away. Yeah. So it's there. I tried to let it burp up and then, just burp up.
Burp up.
My process is what's really happening now? What's really going on with me now? Is there really something to fear, or is this just, and I went through kind of a logical process a little bit to get myself in a better place. And then I tried to get into my heart center, because once I could get there, once I could put my awareness in the heart center and maybe just chant Om or just expand and contract a little bit, then, everything the emotions started to get harmonized.
Okay, so this is a really tricky spot right here. I think this is where people get stuck because, and I'll use my example again. So if I get irritated, now I'm going to switch to the heart center and say, what's happening here? And let's take a look at this. But the tendency and where the vulnerability is that at this point, if the ego gets a hold and you feel fear, you can get stuck there. You can get really like, oh, you're either going to say, no, I can't deal with this. And, you're going to want to put it away. You're going to want to deny it. You're going to, you're not going to be able to take that next step to letting go and then eventually being open and receptive to a new way of responding, right? So let's just address that feeling of what if we get at this point overwhelmed by fear?
Yeah, if you're getting overwhelmed by the emotion, then you don't want to keep dwelling on it. I mean, when we're saying accept it and acknowledge it, but sometimes if it's a really big thing, some people have faced serious abuse in their life. Yes, and they don't, it's too difficult that you're going to get stuck there. And so you've acknowledged you have this feeling, then you have to go to whatever it is that works best for you to get more calm and more harmonized. Maybe you do some exercise, or like you could do some yoga postures and then lie in savasana, try to do deep relaxation. I like to do, for me, the fastest way out of that and out of a really, when it's a really intense emotion, the fastest way out is to go to a meditation practice that I know has worked for me in the past,
And
or
it's heart-centered.
to just recall what it feels like a really good meditation, like recalling a blessing, you know, when you felt that incredible
Yes,
harmony.
yes.
You can just recall that. It'll move you to a different place.
Okay, that's really important. What you just said, that's actually very practical. So, you know, we could say to you, well, try to imagine a beach if it makes you feel calm, or, you know, some beautiful place. Maybe that's going to work to a certain degree, but a better way is to or what you said, a faster way to get there emotionally in a heart space where you can be vulnerable but feel safe at the same time, is to remember your most prolific spiritual experience, your most intense connection with spirit. If you can bring that back, get into that, that will bolster you. That will make you feel safe. That will put a little cocoon around what's happening, and you can kind of operate inside of that safety net. Does that make sense?
That's totally it right there. I mean, you know, everyone's had an experience, even if you haven't had a spiritual experience or a meditation experience. Everyone's had an experience when you have that incredible sense of well-being.
Right.
And, you know, we may have lucked into it. So you want to just recall that and let yourself be in that place.
Right. And somehow you're connected to the universe.
Yeah.
And that, yes, I think that's like, listeners, that's the best tip right there. Write that one down. That's the best tip right there.
That's going to help. Yeah.
Yes.
That's going to make the difference. And we all have some experience we can go to.
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that's true. At some point we felt loved by the universe, comforted by the universe, really connected in some way, whether it's just in an amazing flow of love, it's bhakti, it's whatever it is, it's there for you. Carry that around in your back pocket like your best friend. That's a tool you can use often to get out of these places where the ego is trying to, you know, dance on your head, and you can, you know, get away from that, you know. So that's it.
You want to get out of the ego and the subconscious being dominant in that moment.
Exactly.
You want to get out of that. If we can just get into a little bit higher state of consciousness.
Lovely. Oh, I love that conversation. That, I hope that's really helpful for people. So we have this connection. We use whatever is uniquely ours to feel loved and comforted and safe and able to have a sense of being that is more open and more receptive, because that is where creativity happens. That's actually a very feminine quality, that openness and receptivity and being willing to do something new, you know, move past your comfort zone and be able to create something new out of an old habit. So the next step, and I think this falls in line, Chris, you tell me if there's anything off about this for you, but the next step for me would be to set an intention. Okay, now I'm feeling calmer. I'm not so pissed off that my car is going to cost me a freaking bunch of money to fix. And, you know, I'm like, I've been here a number of times in my life. I'll live through it. I'll figure it out. You know, something's going to happen, right? So now I want to intend to be in a different space. And what is that space? So sometimes it's just enough for people to feel better, and, you know, they can get on with their day. I actually use this space as an opportunity to create something incredibly new. I ask, you know, I will sit and ask for, what is it that's my next step? What do I need to do from here with this experience? How can I make the best out of this? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to go. You know, I mean, one of the things you can say is, well, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I move forward? You know, that's a great open door to having creative insights that, you know, once you've gotten out of the fear mode or the anger mode, it gets you right into a centered place where we're open to our own intuitive insights.
Yes. Now this is where yogis love you to be, right?
That's where yogis love you to be.
This is where the magic can happen. This is where, you know, the universe can get to you, and you can hear what spirit's trying to say to you, and you can feel really connected in a way that it feels like you have a sense of purpose, even if it's in just fixing my dang car. You know, you feel totally different about how you're responding to the universe. So I will create that. I did create that open space and just ask what my next steps were with this. And for me, it was literally a just letting go. The car, you'll figure out how to pay for it. You'll get a ride, all of that stuff. And it all worked out. People helped out, gave me a ride to the shop and back, and I got my car back and all of that stuff. But I also started to visualize from there, how can I grow my patience and my faith when these kinds of situations happen, so that I don't spend a lot of time in the, what do you call it, the little nitty gritty stuff of life? Because like we said, it always is happening to you. I don't care how enlightened you are, it's gonna, crap is going to be thrown at you. That's all there is to it, So I really asked, from a heart space, how can I be more patient? How can I be more steadfast in my faith that the universe is backing me up, that, no matter what's happening, it may look like I'm in trouble or I'm not in control, but the universe is there for me. So that's kind of where I went to with my setting of my intentions and wanting to have like a bigger response to it. What's your feeling of that?
Yeah, I wanted to step back for 1 second, because sometimes some people, when they try to open themselves up and say, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? And they'll say, nothing came.
Right.
Nothing came to me. So if that's happening, if you're not getting any insight, it's because there's still some tension in your mind and heart, which is okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you want to do then is just choose what you would rather be for that moment. Maybe it's not going to be the ideal thing. Later on, you may go back and find something else. But at that moment, maybe it's, okay, I have plenty of money to pay for my car. Everything's fine. I'm perfectly patient through this. Whatever it is, you make an affirmation and put your energy on what you really want. Right. Put your weight on the other foot rather than on the issue. And that will help you get through. And it will also help you open the door to insights from your inner self, your intuitive self, about what you really need. And maybe you did right. Maybe you picked what you really need. But a lot of times people will just get really hung up there. So
that's a really good point. But it makes me want to ask you a question, and that is, what if the person were to take that moment and say, how can I get more connected to my inner self from this experience?
Yeah, that would be the ideal thing to do at that moment, because when we're fearful and we get anxious, we have moved out of the inner self. We're more in an ego place. Right. And so just asking, how can I get more in touch with my inner self? The door is going to open. There'll probably be some kind of opening. There'll be a little tinkle somewhere. There'll be something. And if there isn't, if nothing's coming when you say that, then I would start doing any kind of recentering practices, Right. And the thing is to be persistent. Yeah. If one doesn't work, like sometimes what we'll do is we'll do something for like a minute and say, oh, it's not working.
Right. Throw it away.
Throw it away. But give it some intensity, and if it doesn't work, do something else. Do another meditation practice. I remember the story of Ramakrishnananda, who said, back in the late 60s, whenever he first started doing yoga, he had 3 dry days where he was not doing well. And so he took out his yoga notebook and he did one technique after another. He did 60 techniques and then one worked. So I'm not saying you're going to need 60 techniques. I mean,
but write them down, you guys, just in case.
right. But that's a really, focused, persistent person. But the thing is, if it doesn't work immediately, keep going.
I love that you brought that up, because that will happen to people. But I also want to say what I would do in that situation when I don't get an answer, or maybe not the answer that I want, because I often have expectations that I shouldn't have. I should be open and receptive. But, if I get tied up in that and I feel like, oh, I'm just struggling, I'm not getting an answer, then what I'll do is I'll say, it's okay to live in this question. it's okay to have this question,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're going to walk away from this moment and go on to the next part of your day or your life, but you're going to say, whatever that answer is to how can I be more connected in this moment, or more connected when, something comes my way and it's not going the way I want it to go. Just live in that question. Have the sense that when I'm ready and the answer can come, it will happen. So that's actually a way that I've grown my patience and grown my faith, because I can go, if maybe a few hours or a day, or, I wake up and bang, there's the answer right there. But you just kind of leave the door open by thinking, I'm just going to have this as a living question. I want to know
That's
how
a
to get closer.
really, really good point.
Yeah.
Because the answer may not come right then.
Yeah. It doesn't.
And often when we take a break, like go to sleep,
Yeah.
and like you wake up in the morning and you have an insight, it's because you took a little break, you let everything calm down and recenter. That's really important. And,
Yes.
it's okay. The answer didn't come, but you've got to be patient. And, patience in yoga, we say patience is the effort, the tapas of the mind. The more patient we can be, the more calm our minds will be.
That's
and
so true.
I will say that as a person who, when I was younger, was extremely impatient with everything.
Me too.
And one of the things that I learned early on in one of our beginning yoga classes was Ramakrishnananda took a box of matches, dumped it down on the ground, and he said, what you want to do to develop patience is pick one up at a time and put it in a box. And so it was a horrifying thought at the moment, but I went out and I bought a big box of matches.
You did do it?
I did. I knew it was an issue for me, and if I could solve that problem. So I dumped the matches and then I picked them up one.
Oh man, I missed that class.
And, after a while, you don't have to have matches. You can do it with paper clips, pencil, anything. Just something that it gets your mind into a whole different state. If anyone who's had a child, when the kid's really little and it might be in a high chair or something and they dump everything down and you have to pick it up and then they'll throw it down and you pick it up again. And, that's a great way to calm the mind. It
does. As long as your mind is not like cursing as you're picking up.
No.
Like that's me. Like, I'm gonna get a handful of I have to be able to have that calm mind as you're doing it. So
when you start doing that when you start doing it, I said, okay, I'm going to do this one by one. It was amazing to me.
Yeah, the mind just.
How much I started to enjoy it.
Yeah.
As having been a very impatient person, but I was really starting to enjoy it. There's just something about that process, And
did you notice at the time how your mind actually just started to?
I did. At first I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick up one match at a time. But before you know it, this is really
You're going, what's happening?
This is really nice. This is really good. It's amazing.
Oh, this is what calm feels like.
This is what it's like to not be patient,
How did we ever get through our teenage years? It's only God knows.
It was tough.
Only God knows.
People talk about past lives. The only thing I don't want to do is the teenage years.
Teenager again. Been it enough times.
That's motivation to not have to come back, right?
Can we come back as an adult and bypass all that?
Bypass all that. If you just knew what you knew now when you were a teenager, it would be such a different experience.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. Be a little Yoda when you come out.
Yeah.
I want to go for that. Oh my gosh, that's fun. So our process of letting go, maybe I'm hoping that our listeners are seeing it a little differently than maybe they normally, approach that kind of a situation. But I want to say one more thing. And the last step I think is just as important as the others. And that is to really congratulate and celebrate yourself for doing it, for doing something different and not just staying in the old negative habit, the old negative response for, from that first step of becoming aware of what it is so that you can change it and not always be tied up in that negative energy. So really celebrate yourself, learn to become your biggest fan, because as you do that, you're developing a habit of really being happy and celebrating yourself for being able to change and being able to grow and being able to transform, which is so important. It's a vital, vital skill to not get stuck in those negative places. So, yes, you'll be more inclined to do it again if you celebrate yourself and really congratulate yourself there and feel good about it. So
that's really, really, really important.
isn't that nice?
I was doing a Zoom exercise class, and at the end, the woman who was teaching the class, she's a physical therapist, so she's a professional, and she does a really beautiful job. And so at the end, she said, "Now pat yourself on the back," because it was a tough class. And at first I thought that was kind of silly, but I did it. I did it. And you know what?
Give myself a virtual hug here. Yeah. It feels good.
It felt good.
It feels
and
good.
I realized why that works. I mean, I needed to appreciate the fact that I did this. I did this hour of exercise for myself, even whether it felt good or not while I was doing it. It was good for me. And so do something simple to appreciate yourself after you've done that. Because
I'm so glad you said that, because I have this great example, and this is a little off the letting go subject, but I had watched this gal on Instagram that was, I met her recently, and she said she did yoga, and I was telling her that, I've done yoga for a while, and not like this chick, I want to tell you, because I looked at her Instagram, man, and she spends half her life on her hands, upside down with her feet and her butt in the air, and I looked at the Instagram, but I was like, oh my God, she is like a yoga goddess. She is so toned and so fit and so strong, so strong. Okay, so my butt is not getting up in the air like that. I'm not going to be doing that, so I'm feeling bad. I'm like, okay, wow, that doing yoga thing is kind of like, that's very individual. So I went and I did some, because my back's been hurting from tennis. So I went back and I did some postures, and I did a bow and some stuff to strengthen my back. And then I was like, good, see, I can do it too, and I felt better. I really did. It was funny.
It's amazing. It's amazing how it works. It really does.
It really is. So we're going to end on that. Celebrate yourselves. We love you. Love yourself.
Love you.
The best way to spend life. See you next week.
Bye.